In other words, people would start leaving. And that's, by the way, one of the legal arguments that they made against the Arizona law, was that it is not the federal government's policy to have illegal immigration reduced through attrition.
Well, I'll tell you a story. Last night I was home at about 6:30. We'd finished dinner, and I was there. They're building a house right across the street from me, and I was watching a bunch of illegal aliens that were over there building, and they were done, and they were like arguing with each other, and they were running up to the fence that was on the back of that house, that their building's property, and they were catcalling women that were jogging by. And then one of them looked crazy. And these guys, I mean, just 10 years ago, illegals didn't look and act like this. And I'm seeing it at gas stations, other places, wild-eyed, crazy, angry. And one guy was walking around with a hammer, acting nuts, and cars were driving by, and people didn't know what to make of it. And it just seems like more and more of the illegals have come from Mexico City with 30 million people, a Running Man / Blade Runner hell, and I feel sorry for these people. It's a totally collapsed. I mean, it's the most hellish city on earth. Anthropologists unanimously agree, and Mexico's been so lawless now for decades that I think it's a new type of immigrant. I mean, this is getting scary. And I've been in a lot of these immigrant neighborhoods when I played football in Dallas, and I had Hispanic friends who lived in some of these poorer areas, and I'd go there to have lunch with them or play basketball or whatever. They were nice people. And now I drive through these areas, and I think through the Hispanic rap and the country music, they glorify the drug dealers and the gangster society, and I think that MS-13 Mexican mafia thing has spread. And I mean, I was watching these guys. And I'm somebody who's not scared easily, and I wasn't scared. I felt aggression as I was looking out the window. These guys looked crazy. I mean, they were wild-eyed. I mean, they looked like desperados out of a Clint Eastwood movie. These guys look crazier and meaner than Tuco in The Good, the Bad, and the Ugly. And I was just going, my God, where on earth are these? I mean, they look wild. And they were, again, walking around with hammers and arguing with each other, and like they were on PCP or something. I mean, have you seen this?
Oh, I haven't. Amazingly enough, where I live here near the border, there are so many Border Patrol agents that live in this little town of Sierra Vista nearby. We hardly have any illegal aliens. There's very few Hispanics here. So we don't have the experience that you're seeing there. But these people have been used for 20 years to being able to walk right into this country and flaunt the law and thumb their noses. And I think they now feel a sort of pressure building, and I think they anticipate, they look forward, they might say, hey, wait a minute, we see a change of attitude in the United States, and this could bode very ill for us.
But that change, and I want you to continue, isn't just that we're going into depression. I mean, the deal is Americans, and I'm glad to see a lot of Hispanics speaking out against this, we see radio stations are named The Invasion or The Race. We see air conditioner companies named The Race. We see La Raza and Mecha, and we see the NAACP saying we don't help government officials with the Department of Agriculture. We don't help white people because they're scum. I mean, and the thing is, you've got all these white yuppies that are guilty and really do want to like everybody, and we're taught to be guilty, and who are saying, you know what, I'm not guilty anymore. I'm not scum. I'm not bad. Right. And I'm tired of this. And really, I think that's what the race crowd has now figured out. And I agree with you. It's going to get nasty very soon. Glenn, how do you see that being triggered?
Oh, any number of ways. Once again, you've seen more and more conflict right along the border. I could see that being triggered in El Paso, or at any place like Nogales, or even right here, right near me, Naco. They just had a big gang fight just south of my ranch. People were killed. There was a couple of years ago, they shut down the school here, a U.S. school on the U.S. side, because they heard a large Mexican gang was headed for Naco, Arizona.
Well, I mean, look, 2 months ago, and of the 6 kids, 4 were Hispanic. They were wearing old Navy shirts with an American flag, and on that quasi-fake holiday, which isn't even Mexican independence, and the illegals were offended by the American flag. I mean, this is not going to mix, because This is not Chinese immigrants that just want to come here and live. This is not Brazilian immigrants that just want to come here and live. We don't see the problem there. Or people from Costa Rica. This isn't people from Germany or people from African immigrants. We're not seeing this. Mexico lost wars with the U.S., and they've been taught in those schools that this belongs to Mexico. And it's just so explosive.
Well, I wanted to mention one thing that is very subtle but very significant. When you see these large crowds that are out demonstrating in favor of amnesty and against law enforcement, they used to carry Mexican flags. They don't do that as much anymore. But look for something that very few people notice it. Most of them are wearing white shirts. You see a sea of white. Why? Been told to. They've been told to wear white shirts. Now, what wears a uniform and takes orders? An army. These people are subject to, in the Spanish language media, so much propaganda that is so different, the stories that are so different from what we hear. You have a nation divided against itself.
No, the Spanish media, because my wife, lived, I guess, 5 years in Madrid, so she speaks fluent Spanish, and she's the one always pointing it out. But, I mean, it's the standard thing is we're taking over, the gringo's evil, we're going to bring down America, we're communism, we're going to get the guns. And then the average idiot American has no idea this is going on. It's perfect. It's a foreign army. And then Hispanics who want to be Americans, great people, they're intimidated. They call in all the time. They're told, no, you've got to join the Invasora, the invasion. You've got to join the La Reconquista. The final segment with Glenn Spencer. Folks, I want everybody to live in peace. I want to save the Republic. That's why we talk about these tough issues. It's very simple. You look at any child, a white child, Hispanic child, Asian, black, it doesn't matter. You love children because they're human beings. And then people grow up to become adults and they get filled with all this propaganda. And none of us are perfect. There's a very self-righteous belief that the wealth of the United States was stolen from Mexico, which is not true. And that the United States is pure evil. No, it's the big corporations who all are for open borders that are creating so much of our heartache. And as we go into a depression, people are going to fight over resources. I mean, 7 million Americans are estimated by university studies to have starved during the 10 years of the Great Depression. And even more in Europe. And if we go into a real depression, we're already going into the beginnings of one, it's going to create incredible pressure. And if you got a bunch of self-righteous people, listening to Spanish media where it's get the gringo, this and that all day long, it is going to be explosive, ladies and gentlemen. And the globalists are going to come in and restore law and order at the expense of everybody's freedoms, and I'm against that. Glenn Spencer, we got about 3-4 minutes left. Closing comments on what we've been discussing here.
Well, on July 14th, John McCain went on a record with Greta Susterman. He was talking about why Obama was suing Arizona. And he said, more and more, I am convinced that this is all about solidifying the Hispanic vote. Now, when you think about it, and then people came on after that and said the same thing. Now, if you think about that, wait a minute. Obama is suing the state of Arizona because he wants to solidify his Hispanic base. 64% of U.S. Hispanics are of Mexican origin. So he believes, Obama must believe, that the vast majority of Hispanics want an open border. Now, if that's the case, we've got a problem.
Well, what they're doing is they're selling the idea. I mean, it's like headlines against Bob Dole in '96. Women support Clinton more. And then other women say, well, then I support Clinton. I'm not saying Bob Dole was good. The point is, it's a self-fulfilling prophecy. Well, like, everybody knows it's a conspiracy to say there's a new world order. And then weak-minded people hear that and say, well, I'm not for conspiracy theories. When I've seen Gallup polls up into the high 70s, low 80s of Hispanic Americans that are against open borders. I mean, I go to...
Then Obama is wrong. And John McCain is wrong.
But they mean to be wrong. It's part of globalism. They just say it's what Hispanics want. Okay.
Well, that may be. I hope you're right. This is something that we need to watch very carefully. And if it isn't the case, I think you have Hispanic leaders who have an obligation to speak out and say, no, this isn't true. We're not for open borders. But some of them...
I agree. Most of the Hispanic leaders are bought and paid for by the globalist. I mean, look at how the Fortune 500 funds all this.
Well, this is, these arguments are difficult, and they're difficult subjects, but the one thing that is very simple, I'm down on the border. we have a law that says it's illegal to come into the United States, and we're not enforcing it. And what American Border Patrol does on a regular basis is to prove to the American people that the government is lying to them. And then they can make whatever decisions they want to make regarding the future of the politicians who represent them.
Well, bottom line, we're not going to have a country anymore if we decide to let anybody in and get rid of our borders, and that's what the globalists want. You've talked about how they're sacrificing our country on the altar of globalism.
That is correct. That's exactly what they're doing.
And Calderon copied all the other Mexican presidents and said the Southwest belongs to Mexico.
Oh, they all believe that. All the polls in Mexico show that is the case. They believe that.
Well, it's just not going to work. I mean, you're not going to merge a third world, imploding, road warrior society with the United States, but the globalists are trying it. Glenn Spencer, thank you so much for your time. Thank you so much. Key information coming up, Infowars.com.